Hi, good morning. Welcome to That Saturday Show, brought to you by the Albuquerque Center for Peace and Justice, where we strive to create a peaceful world, equality for all, and a healthy environment for all living things. Please check us out. Stop by 202 Harvard Southeast. Go to our website at abqpeaceandjustice.org. Become a member, make a donation, check us out, see what we do, see all the groups that we work with. And I'm your host, Tom Dent, and it's April the 8th, and aside from the wind and being a little bit cold before the end of the Holy Week, or whatever you want to call it, it looks like it's going to be a very beautiful spring here in Albuquerque. I hope you're ready for it. I hope you're ready to get outdoors more and get planting and get your gardens going. Here's some stuff that's going on at the Peace Center, around the Peace Center. The Peace Center is going to be tabling and going to be present at the groundbreaking of the ACS building. That's the new public safety building that's going to be constructed on the old Parkland Hills Shopping Center lot that's right at Catherine and San Mateo. So we're going to be out there. It's going to be great to have that facility in that neighborhood. I know they're going to expand a lot in that four-acre lot with a lot of services to serve the community. So that's going to be at 11 o'clock today after the show. So quickly get your hour of That Saturday Show in, and then get over to Catherine and San Mateo for that groundbreaking. Another thing that's coming up, Veterans for Peace, some of the nuclear groups or anti-nuclear groups at the Peace Center and other groups that we work with want you to know about a seminar that's going on April the 16th. It's called, is put on by Stop WIP Forever. It's on what is WIP, how to learn how the waste isolation pilot plant impacts you. It's a free conference from 1 until 4 p.m. In Santa Fe. It's on Zoom. And for more information, just go to stopforeverwip, all one word.org. What's going on at the Peace Center? We've had kind of problems with our plumbing, so a lot of our daily programs have been stopped for a week or two. Our yoga, our open mind discussion, our meditation. The Peace Cafe has been postponed a little bit. Hopefully we'll get the Peace Cafe back open next week or the week after that. And remember that when it does happen, it starts from 10 until 3 every Thursday at 202 Harvard Southeast in the Peace Hall. There's a very important meeting another membership meeting, but a meeting that we need all the members possible of the Peace and Justice, of the Albuquerque Center for Peace and Justice. There's going to be a meeting on Saturday, May the 13th. Please save the date. It's going to start at, I believe, 11 o'clock. And it's basically, we're changing our bylaws. We're introducing our new board of directors. The question is going to be, should our board elect itself and sustain itself, or should it be democratically elected by members? So it's going to be a very important election determining the future and the path that the Peace Center is going on. You know that we have over 20 to 30 groups that are involved in a number of different issues that work at the Peace Center. We have movies, events, music, sometimes speakers from around the country and around the world. We're, like you've probably heard on other shows, we're moving into the community with direct service actions. We've been working for the past year with a number of middle schools and high schools and going into more charter schools for restorative justice training. And we're also supervising the students, forming talking circles so they can talk about all the issues that are extremely important to them to give themselves a voice, to get back to their parents, their schools, and the community. And You know, that Saturday show hasn't been on directly that much in the past couple of weeks. And I'd like to keep it going with myself for a little bit longer, but we're trying very hard to get youth in and more diverse groups. The Peace Center itself is becoming much more youth and much more welcoming to diverse communities and groups. So again, you know, we are on Facebook. Look us up on our Facebook page, become a member, subscribe to our newsletter, see what's going on. Is there anything else coming up? I think that Veterans for Peace has a speaker coming in pretty soon. So check our events calendar on our website for details like that. What's going on the show today? We have music by In the End, which is an old group that the great Albuquerque guitarist Bardo Trujillo was a part of. Bardo also played with Traveler in Pain, and we're going to try to get them on next week with the next show that we do, next new show we do. This is about our 106th episode. Joining me on this hour is going to be Kathleen Burke. We've Zoomed with her before. She works with the League of Women Voters and has been working on fair districting and redistricting around the state, the different political divisions, and working against gerrymandering and for voter protection. Kathleen also works with Arthur Furstenberg that we had on the show before, who is an EMF warrior. He wrote a book, a very well-known book called The Invisible Rainbow. He is a physicist, a very respected physicist, and she's been working with him primarily now about the dangers of smart meters that P&M and Avangrid, if they actually succeed in merging with P&M, which is a very bad thing. I'll get to that in a minute. They want to put these radio-controlled electric meters on everybody's house and apartments, and they emit pretty high-level radio waves. Studies have shown that they've messed with the immediate environment. Animals and plants don't want to get near them. They can mess with people's brain waves and their mental health to some degree. So I'll let Kathleen talk about that. Andreas Valdez from Vecinos United is going to come back to talk about what police reform or police inroad bills have passed in the state legislature or were tabled and made to go away. He is also going to be talking about our ethics claim with when it comes to the case of Alyssa Lucero, who's a mentally challenged woman who was shot 21 times and executed by Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department. He and other groups and myself have been trying to get justice for Alyssa Lucero, and there's kind of like an ethics thing going on between outgoing Attorney General Hector Balderas and incoming Raul Torres. I will let Andreas talk about that. And also more of the follow-up of our meeting with the mayor about Dominic Perez, one of James Boyd's police murderers, who is still with APD, and what the status of what he's doing in APD entails. He apparently was very close to becoming a SWAT trainer at the academy, and rumors are that he has gone out on calls, but he is not. He should have been fired from APD. He shouldn't be, or if he's there, he should be behind a desk and away from firearms and anything like that, in the opinion of a number of police reform activists. So they're going to talk a little bit about stuff in the state legislature. Today is the 8th, so yesterday, Friday, was the kind of very last day of the state legislative session. Friday was the day that the governor had to sign all the bills that were on her desk, or either vetoed them, or if they weren't touched, they were subject to a pocket veto, which is, they're tabled or made to go away until they're reintroduced next year. Some of the great bills that the governor has signed that we've been following. One is, we had Justin Allen on here. He's been working for years on reforming the voting rights bill, and that was passed, and that gives inmates coming out of jail and prison being eligible to vote, ex-felons being able to vote, and it does a lot of different inroads. I believe it. You don't have to show in many communities. I don't think you have to show your driver's license or whatever, just proof of residency. They've been making the bill makes a lot of inroads into diverse communities and the Native American communities. So it's a very good bill. Another bill, we've had Eva Buchwald and Anya Olson on here about the Senate Bill 64, the Second Chance Bill, and what that is it commutes life sentences. Like if you're 15 or 16 and you make a horrible mistake and you kill somebody or kill somebody by accident or they want to try you as an adult, basically it commutes it from a direct life sentence to 15 to 20 years, depending on time served, behavior, all that, to see if rehabilitation is actually taking place and there is a chance for these guys to re-enter society. Let's see, the other one that many people have been following is House Bill 7, which is the reproductive rights and gender affirming health care, which marks us, it solidifies us as different from a number of states out there that their legislatures are doing everything they can to restrict women's rights, women's health rights, access to clean and safe abortion. Let's see, there's another interesting thing. I think it shores up everything about people if they have a record that includes possession of cannabis, or they're just taken in for possession of cannabis. Within certain ounces, it expunges all that off people's records. So that kind of shores up what they were doing before, saying that you for less than an ounce or 2 ounces you can't be put in jail or and all that. Speaking of cannabis, I guess they're allocating $6 million to help fund the Cannabis Control Commission and to regulate the dispensaries around the state. And as you know, they're popping up everywhere. I guess the figure was something like $3 million plus the cannabis industry in New Mexico legalized cannabis industry in New Mexico brought in the last year. So that's moving along very well. The bills that we're afraid are on the governor's desk, and we don't know if they're going to be signed. We talked about different forms of energy. We talked about PNM, the PRC, solar, wind, and oil and gas concerns. We talked about the $50 million for green and blue hydrogen development being tacked into the overall state budget and being used to match federal funds to set up hydrogen hubs here that we don't think really add to our electricity or our energy here in the state. Also, I don't know if she signed, the governor has signed this yet, but we've been following Senate Bill 426 to create a civil rights division within the Attorney General's office. Also the purchase of, I'm pretty sure the governor is going to sign it, but it's the purchase of firearms for another person will be against the law. One of the bills that she did sign, she signed a huge feed bill, and she also signed HB 9, which is unlawful access to firearms by a minor. So we're getting some inroads in gun control, but there's a lot of really good bills that have been tabled or fallen flat in the legislature. Anything else going on? What's going on around the world? There's unrest in Israel and France. A certain individual that used to hold a high office in the country is going to New York and being arraigned and arrested, and there's other charges looming down the line, and people are already thinking about running for the presidency and other offices. But we're not even in an election year. It's a year away. But it really pays to be aware of these issues and how you can help with your vote steer the country. So don't rest right now. Make sure you know what's going on and what's happening. So Andreas and Kathleen will be here in a little while. I'll talk a little bit about in the end. I talked about with another group with Blind Drive that I was wrapped up in this thing that was actually here on 27 and 26 called Music Unite. There was a lot of bands back there that were really good heavy metal bands. In the End was one of them. Bardo Trujillo, who's a good friend of mine, has won all sorts of New Mexican music awards, not just for heavy metal, but for like classically trained stuff. And then he played with Traveler in Pain, which is a very good, well-known group. And before I have Kathleen and Andreas here, we're going to play a song by them that is called, and I always forget the name, it's called Technological Deception. And we're back. Tom Dent here. We just heard from In the End. Thanks, Bardo, for letting us use your songs. Here we are with Kathleen Burke and Andreas Valdez. And that intense song you just heard is called Technological Deception. And speaking of technological deception, Kathleen is here to talk about smart meters and other technological deceptions that are happening with PNM and the Public Regulation Commission in New Mexico. Hi, welcome to the show, Kathleen.
Hi, Tom. Good morning. Thank you.
Sure. Off you go. Tell us all about smart meters and why we should be worried and why we probably shouldn't have them at all in New Mexico.
Okay, great. So there's a case pending at the New Mexico PRC currently having to do with the grid modernization plans, the Grid Modernization Act, and having to do with smart meters, which are also called AMI, Advanced Metering Infrastructure. Smart meters are a replacement for the utility meters that we have currently attached to our homes, our places of business, and our public buildings. As you can see here, looks like a utility meter, right? However, if you'll notice, this is a digital utility meter as opposed to an analog utility meter. When it's on, the numbers show up in digital form. And it differs from your current, some of you will have the old style utility meters where they have a wheel running and keeping track. So you might be wondering, well, what's the problem with utility meters? What could possibly go wrong, right? Well, in this case, there are a lot of things that can go wrong. Smart meters are actually dangerous, and we have hundreds and hundreds of cases from around the world about people who have died from exposure to the radiation from smart meters, because these meters, as opposed to our current meters, emit RF radiation. That's radio frequency radiation. They are wirelessly controlled, and so by virtue of that, they emit RF radiation outward from the meters. And we know from plenty of studies around the world, peer-reviewed studies, that RF radiation is damaging to life of both insects, animals, humans. And it is in large part why we are now in the 7th grade extinction of our planet. Yes, there are other factors involved. We have environmental destruction from development. We have pesticides, insecticides. We have, of course, global warming. This particular issue of RF radiation is not being talked about in the public all that much. And the attempt to force smart meters on New Mexicans has just brought this issue out into the public eye, and that's why I'm with you here today to talk about that a bit. The damage from smart meters goes everything from smaller effects such as insomnia to greater effects including death. It's not unreasonable that a person exposed to RF radiation can die, particularly if you imagine, let's say, Albuquerque residents who live in apartment communities where one might have a bank of smart meters outside of his or her apartment building. So imagine that, right? We have smart meter banks here in downtown Albuquerque at apartment buildings of up to 100 smart meters on the outside of one building in one location. So imagine, let's say, worst case scenario. We've got the bank of smart meters on the building. What's inside the building right behind those meters? Worst case scenario could be a child's bedroom, a daycare center or a nursery where multiple children are being taken care of. It could be an elderly person's bedroom, where a bedridden person who might be there all the time.
Well, my electric meter's right under right next to my daughter's window.
Oh, right. So, and my neighbor has 3 meters outside of his bedroom, and he already has very complex physical and mental challenges. So this could be devastating
This
to
is
him.
a serious public health issue for the state of New Mexico.
Correct. So my organization is New Mexicans for Utility Safety. We are a statewide organization. We have 900 plus members currently, and we are doing our best to fight this case at the New Mexico PRC currently. Smart meters were actually defeated back in 2018. So we've been around this once before already, and we won. The people of New Mexico defeated smart meters. Now we have an appointed Public Regulation Commission, and we don't have an idea of what's going to happen here, but we're not too happy about having to fight it again. But we are fighting it. We gave over 5 hours of public comment 2 weeks ago to the commission. One commissioner was present for that. And the case was actually heard 2 weeks ago, and the hearings are complete now at the PRC. And a decision is expected to be handed down by July 1st. So a bit of good news about this, however, is New Mexicans for Utility Safety has filed for the hearing examiner, Christopher Ryan, to be removed from the case due to bias. He has shown incredible bias in favor of the industry, PNM, and incredible bias against any commentary from the people having to do with health, wellness, public safety, and the environment. All of that was prohibited from being introduced to the PRC. And that was at the behest of the hearing examiner. That was a ruling handed down by him. So the president of New Mexicans for Utility Safety, Arthur Furstenberg of Santa Fe, filed a writ of mandamus to the New Mexico Supreme Court. And while we didn't hear back from the New Mexico Supreme Court in time before the hearing, we did hear back from them after the hearing. And so now they have served the hearing examiner, Christopher Ryan, with the papers to questioning him. And he now has to face the New Mexico Supreme Court and attempt to defend his ruling preventing New Mexicans from talking about health, safety, and the environment at the PRC.
Yeah. And the PRC is can be, we've talked about this on other programs, can be easily influenced at this point. We unfortunately, as voters, allowed the governor to appoint two of the regulators of the Public Regulations Committee, and there's a big move to get bills to get that back on the ballot, so we elect those people so they represent the public instead of special interests like smart meters and Avangrid, which we might talk about just a little bit later. But and of course, you know, this we need all the jobs we can get in New Mexico, and a lot of people, meter readers, rely on that livelihood, and they're going to be knocked out of business with smart meters. Let me ask you one question: if you have a huge bank, can anything be done to protect people against? I mean, can a wall of lead be put up, or what?
Oh, we are aware of possible workarounds. However, in PNM's application, there's no discussion of PNM implementing any safety precautions in that regard.
And this is looking like it's all about money. Yeah, big surprise. You know, their PNM's interest in the Palo Verde is waning. Palo Verde, you know, was in danger of their rods being affected if our drought continued as it had. But fortunately, there's been tons of rain and snow in the area. They have lost a lot of money in being forced to shut down the San Juan coal generating plant and to set up other businesses and utilities for the reservation there. So, and with this company that we've talked about many times on the show, Avangrid, trying to come in, trying to merge with PNM. Avangrid is run by Iberdrola out of Barcelona, Spain. Most of their bigwigs in that country are going to jail probably for the rest of their lives for all sorts of business criminal investigation. Avangrid's destroyed old forest growth in Canada and Maine. They've messed up the utilities in Maine, New York, and in Pennsylvania, and they don't really give a rat's about solar and wind, and it's all about making money. And Avangrid, we thought they were going to go away, but they were rejected by the PRC, and now they've made an appeal to the Supreme Court, and they're trying to come back to the PRC. I'm not sure of the technical details. We'll try to get Mariel Nanazi and New Energy Economy back on to talk about that. But what I'm seeing is that the companies have extended the date of their merger agreement until April 20th of this year, according to the statement. But that all hopefully depends on a Supreme Court ruling and how the PRC receives them in the end. So that is definitely one company that we don't need here. I mean, if we're going to have any future in switching to renewable energy, and as you know from living in New Mexico, we could be the solar capital of the country, if not the world. We could power this whole state with solar and wind.
Yes, Tom, I'd like to say a few more things about the smart meters. I don't want to leave anyone with the impression that the only danger is when there's a bank of smart meters.
Right.
It's not the case. Even if you have a house with one smart meter on it, this is still a dangerous situation. Mm-hmm. We know from stories around the world that one smart meter can cause the wildlife to leave an area. It can do damage to pets. Birds leave, insects leave. So if you're trying to grow a garden on your property, if you're housing pets, if you're feeding wildlife, this is a problem, right? Because we're introducing this lethal, toxic element into the environment with smart meters.
And I've also heard from gardeners and environmentalists that we have some kind of subsoil ozone that goes on here. That's why a lot of people are switching their gardening to raised gardens. So we don't need any more problems with our gardening.
That's right. We're very challenged for gardening, as you know, living in a desert and an urban desert, even more so. Another element that I want to make sure to note is that these new smart meters are guaranteed for 1 year. So, 1 year and 1 year only. Think about the utility meters that we have currently on our homes and buildings here in New Mexico. They've been there for decades and decades.
Well,
They're strong, they're durable, they do not require maintenance. Yet we're having them traded out.
So you're going to have crews all across the city replacing them once every year?
It looks quite possible.
Which sounds about as cost effective as paying meter readers. So
right.
We should really keep what we have.
Right. Yeah, that's what we think. Let's play it safe here and not take these ridiculous risks.
Please spread the word to your groups, to your connections, to your friends and family that we need to really, for the public's health, for living things, oppose smart meters as much as we can in the limited time period we can. And they can go to your Facebook page for more information on this?
Yes, please do. You can find us at New Mexicans for Utility Safety on Facebook, and we'd be happy to hear from you. You can give us your email address, and we would be very happy to keep you updated and add you as a member, if you like, or just not a membership, but just keep you updated. There's no fee. We're just doing this for the community, and we will not be asking you for donations. We just would like to provide the right information to the public.
Well, I'm going to have to switch to Andreas. I know he's been chomping at the bit to let you know what's passed and what hasn't passed at the state legislature, to talk about our ethics complaint with Hector Balderas and Raul Torres, with Dominic Perez, like I said in the beginning, one of the two people that killed a homeless man, James Boyd. So go ahead, Andreas. What's your update? What's going on?
Well, thank you, Tom, for having us on the show. I always like to start by giving a little introduction about who we are. We are Vecinos United, and our whole purpose is to collaborate and work together with some of the issues, for example, that Kathleen has been bringing up. Plus, there was a lot of collaboration and working together on issues going on at the state legislature. I just want to also say that
Well, hasn't Vecinos United has always been concerned about fair rates and public utilities and public health, right?
we've been involved 30 years,
Wow.
and that's given us the experience at the level of corruption throughout government and what we're actually faced with today. And I might add, Vecinos United, and you can look through the newspaper articles and everything, actually helped create the Public Regulation Commission
Yep.
when it was elected. And I want to add like some of the issues that we collaborate on, for example, the smart meters, you know, the redistricting. Regarding the smart meters, we now have a commission that's appointed by the governor, which is in essence causing all these problems. So we're looking at possibly in the future looking to get a bill going on in Santa Fe to repeal the appointed commission, get it back to being elected. If there was problems with it, you don't, solve the problems by destroying the whole thing and going backwards, and that's basically what happened. So getting on with what's going on at the state legislature is, we really try to work on homeless issues, and so we tracked a few of those bills. Stuff on police reform, there was 3 of those bills.
Well,
That we were tracking?
I announced earlier that the governor has either signed or is about to sign the making it illegal to purchase a firearm for another person, and also access to firearms by minors. 2 important bills, but there's so many bills on gun control that didn't make it, and it's very sad at this point.
Yeah, there are so many issues, and they're all related in the sense. Our particularity in terms of what we were focusing on was the police reform, and even separate and way different from what the ACLU does and some of the other groups do, is they concentrate on police reform regarding civil rights, regarding the civil aspects of things. We specialize on the criminal aspects of what's being done. That is to say, it's interesting, they say, and it's a cliche, nobody's above the law. Yet, in this state, police officers are above the law, and we have people like Raul Torres, our current Attorney General, and our former Attorney General, Hector Balderas, to thank for that, because these guys have exercised their discretionary authority, prosecutorial discretion, not to prosecute officers. This has been going on for many, many years. It's part of a pattern that upholds the abusive culture that police officers have. It's basically a bully culture, as we're starting to find out now that we've become associated with a former officer that's willing to expose the whole police department. We're so proud of him that he's actually coming forward and calling and helping us to bring these changes. So there's things I wanted to talk about that actually happened in the interim while the legislative session was going on. But getting back to the legislative session, and then I do want to talk about the meeting that we demanded from the mayor that he actually agreed to have regarding Dominic Perez, the guy who shot the homeless guy way back in the day. It's still coming up again.
And also there's something interesting. The governor, when Torres vacated Bernalillo County Attorney General's office, or District Attorney's office, the governor temporarily appointed the lawyer Sam Bregman to that office, and Sam Bregman happened to be defending Keith Sandy, and Keith Sandy and Dominic Perez executed James Boyd in the foothills. So there's a glaring contradiction right there.
There's something really wrong. It's blatant corruption that for some reason the system, the mayor, the governor, all seem to uphold and support and condone the police shootings and excessive use of force by police officers. There's some way, somehow, we need the support of the public to help us pierce this corruption that's going on. We have to question these guys. They have to be held accountable. And you, the public, have to do it. Because if you don't do it, you're the people that voted these people into office. It's time to hold them accountable, and you have to help us if there's going to be a change. So I think it's important. So some of the,
There's an interesting little side note that we noticed ever since we went up to the mayor's office and we kind of rattled their public information officer, Gilbert Gallegos. The chief has even come out and told him and the people that monitor their social media to calm down, because there's a lot of people making complaints all of a sudden, like we kind of started, that's really shaking up the public information office.
that's right, and actually out of that we found information like, they've hired this Dominic Perez because of the bargaining agreements. Oh, do bargaining agreements include hiring people that murder? And I mean, they really had no reason to hire this guy. Plus,
Well, the collective bargaining made sure that he couldn't be fired, or he could ask for his job back, and he should be behind the desk and nowhere near a SWAT team or a weapon for the rest of his life. Really.
and when Dominic Perez asked to be part of the a consultant for the SWAT team or advisor for the SWAT team, he was placed there because he was the most qualified out of various candidates. So that brings the question, well, what are their qualifications? Was he going to teach people how to be more accurate in shooting people?
Well, he worked as an instructor on the range.
Well, I mean,
know.
he's the worst person that they could have hired for the job, and we're going to continue to see if we can hold the city accountable on that. We're preparing some work to see if we can go back to the mayor and say, hey, look, what you said here and what you said here doesn't add up, so we want more answers. So we're going to do that. Regarding legislative bills up in Santa Fe regarding police reform, Patricia Roybal Caballero and Pamela Herndon introduced House Bill 503, and it was basically a bill that would have sort of like provided a citizen review panel to help review police shootings in the form of their criminality, which is really different. Citizen review panels usually just deal in the administrative aspects of things. And so this would have been a real big change in just basic how law is actually done. It's very interesting. It didn't even get a committee reading. And so we need to look back and find out the details, get the fiscal impact report, what exactly killed the bill or didn't allow it to go forward. Senator Harold Pope and Senator Angela Rubio introduced a bill too, and it was 30 pages long. When you introduce a bill that long, these legislators have a very short attention span. In fact, this is horrible. We found out, or I just found out, that legislators are drinking on the job.
Oh, yeah.
I was very upset when I found out about that, and there needs to be something done about that. And
They've drank on the job for decades, unfortunately.
well, that needs to change. I mean, how could we put up with that? There needs to be public exposure of that, and the public should not put up with that. I don't see how we can continue to condone that kind of behavior. Antoinette Cedillo Lopez introduced Senate Bill 265. Her bill would have provided independent investigators and prosecutors to present their findings to an open court of law, which is the transparency. It's the best thing you can do, having it far removed from the powers that be, the corrupt powers that be, I might add.
All three of us here served on the Southeast Area Community Policing Council, and we know, looking at the Community Police Oversight Agency and stuff like that, what Andreas is talking about, these bills do give like immediate transparency. They take the case from the webcam, the report, which is many times doctored, with the fresh information, and put it in front of citizens panels. Whereas in the past, internal affairs could bury this stuff. Oh, we can't release it until this date, and then when they do, the CPOA has gotten a very small percentage of the cases, excessive force, to them, and they get tied up in standard operating procedure with excessive force. I was there for one meeting, and there was like three different papers that were worked on over 6 months to change each standard operating procedure, and that's all they talked about during the meeting, and they drug it out for like at least 3 meetings after that, and then the union gets involved with protecting these guys, and we don't know, just the basic facts is what the public needs, What was it a justified killing? Was this person mentally impaired? You probably saw in the news the other day there was a guy moving around with a pair of nail clippers, doing nothing, and they executed him. So the public needs to know exactly what the police are doing to hold them accountable.
There's police corruption from top to bottom. We have a long ways to go before we actually have, a clean police department, or even hopes of having a clean police department. For example, this bill that Antoinette Cedillo Lopez introduced, she got a call and I got a text. I mean, we have evidence of all this corruption. This is an example how they operate. During this bill, when she introduced it, she got a message from Raul Torres, our Attorney General, that he didn't want to deal. He wanted her to pull these bills, and she did, and she pulled them. And the reason was that he wanted to have a meeting with the stakeholders, so that, and I suspect he wants to get the stakeholders to gravitate over to his perspective as to how police reform ought to be, which is really corrupt. He actually wrote a scathing political analysis of the bill she wrote, just destroying the whole bill up from top to bottom. So how can she even? I really question like the mentality of some of the legislators. How can they even work with a guy like this, or even believe him? Senator Jerry Ortiz Pino said, "Oh, Andres, I can't help you with that complaint you filed because I have to work with him." Oh, really, Jerry? What you're really telling me is because you have to work with him, you're going to allow a person that's supposed to be in charge of making sure cops don't get away with murder? You're going to allow him to do that? Jerry, do you really realize what you're saying? Basically, they're condoning this behavior, and all of them are, and something needs to be done. It's horrible.
Well, you think they could monitor it better because in this year's budget, which is what, $3.7 billion or something like that, they've already allocated. Michelle Lujan Grisham's already signed $200 million for state police salaries and upping salaries across the state. And like we said in other shows, and what Sampson's indicated, that's the retired cop we've been working with, is there's tons of people on the 4th floor and in 400 Roma. There's barely any cops out on the street, and when they respond to calls and do their reports, there's the reports get buried, and it's just it's such a corrupt system.
That's correct. So we have a lot of work to do, and it's not going to happen unless the public gets involved. There has to be more of an interest. Yes, sure, it's correct. We need police officers. The level of crime is horrendous, but we can't trade. We need officers because the crime is so out of control, and give away human and civil rights. There's a perfect balance that can be achieved, and that has to happen. So just because we have this horrible crime doesn't mean we have to give up our human and civil rights. There's a balance again, and it's an equilibrium, and nobody should be above the law right now. And this case is a perfect case. The girl who was shot 21 times by the county sheriffs is a perfect case of how cops get away with murder, and how the AG and the Attorney General play a complete role in it. And it's just a mess from top to bottom. Believe it or not, even the governor is condoning this behavior. That's a whole nother topic in of itself.
I don't know. Guys, we're winding down. You guys have anything else you want to talk about or get off your chest?
Yeah.
Kathleen, what's going on with districting? You work with the League of Women Voters, and you've been working pretty hard on this for a number of years, right?
Right, yeah. So So redistricting was at the legislature also this year. It passed one committee and was tabled in the second committee, which was House Judiciary. This is a political problem in New Mexico because our legislators are legally allowed to gerrymander and draw their own districts. So we have a real conflict of interest when we have our legislature drawing their own districts. And they also draw the districts for the United States, the congressional seats,
Right.
as well as the let's see, the Public Education Commission.
That's what happened with Congressional District 3, where it had the that whole district like moving up into the South Valley for the first time ever.
Correct, right. So we are, the League of Women Voters runs a project to reform redistricting here in New Mexico. We're now in the 4th year, and our goal is to have an independent redistricting commission in place in time for the next U.S. Census and the redistricting which will follow. Because right in New Mexico, well, across the country, redistricting happens every 10 years after the U.S. Census. So, and Tom, speaking of, you asked about anything else we want to say. The smart meters issue is also an environmental justice issue. It's a perfect example of that. And we have, in New Mexico, we have on the books acts about environmental justice. And there is no question about it. What PNM is proposing to do is in contravention to the Environmental Justice Act of New Mexico, as well as the Public Utilities Act. And so we'll see.
As well as a bunch of nuclear plutonium and radioactive waste issues that affect reservations and everybody around the state when they're trying to truck in a whole bunch of radioactive waste from throughout the country right now. And the spill out from Los Alamos and the holding ponds across the state and the old mines that have been shut down. We're almost out of time, but Andreas wants to talk a little bit more about the ethics complaint.
Yes, I do. I did want to say also
We've
that...
only got about 2 minutes.
Okay, just briefly, I just want to say about the smart meters thing, that PNM basically has gotten a law placed in place to permit what's called the grid system, which is how they operate the smart meters under that law. So that there's actually a law that allows PNM to permeate that whole thing with the smart meters. Mm-hmm. So getting back to the ethics complaint again, you know, what Hector Balderas and the current Attorney General Raul Torres are doing regarding the shooting of this girl who was shot 21 times is so egregious. It is really, really out of control. That and what I've done basically, because something needs to be done right now, so it's time to do it. I filed an ethics complaint with the State Ethics Commission. It's really interesting how they operate. They have some rules that they're allowed to look at and stuff regarding corruption, and some of the corruption going on in the state, they're not allowed to look at. It's really strange. And so they dismissed my complaint, saying that even though they had jurisdiction over that, basically they didn't really explain why, just that they had the right to, that they had discretion whether or not to accept a complaint or not. So because they had discretion, they dismissed it, and that's the whole reason. And then they had their meeting behind closed doors. How do you like that? Transparent? The Ethics Commission having meetings behind closed doors. How transparent is that? So
how can you re-enter this, and how can we get a bulk of the public behind this to make sure it happens?
we need to get the word out, and that's what it seems
I
to be
know-
the most difficult thing, and
Yeah.
you're doing the best. I really,
Share this program, like the smart
Yeah.
meters, let everybody know about this.
Yeah.
And another thing that's kind of interesting is Torres was behind a bill to establish a civil rights department in there, and now he thinks that he has to waste all sorts of time and energy and getting 15 to 17 attorneys to work with that.
it's a
but-
detraction.
No,
It's a detraction from
exactly.
doing his job. His job is not to meddle in civil affairs. It's criminal. What the heck is? It's all a play.
Yeah,
But I just wanted to finish saying that the complaint is now being appealed before district court.
Well, I hate to cut you short. We're going
That's
to have
all.
to end the program. I'm going to have to run out here and drive like crazy, well, slowly and safely to pick up my daughter at driver's ed school. Thank you very much for being on the show, Andreas and Kathleen.
Thank you for having us.
And we're going to close with In the End again, and they're going to be live recorded on video doing the song Take Control, and hopefully we'll see you next week on that Saturday show.
That one's definitely epic.